Before we start, I want to say that only 1% of you are subscribed. Please subscribe because when we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will post a special video for you. As the shuttle descended through the swirling mists of the alien planet, Eric Solis gripped the controls a little tighter. The landscape below, a tapestry of lush green and azure blue, was unlike anything he'd seen back on Earth. "Almost there," muttered his co-pilot, Jenna, her eyes fixed on the instruments. "Landing site in 2 kilometers." Eric nodded, scanning the horizon. "Look at that forest. It's alien," he chuckled nervously. "That's because it is, genius," Jenna shot back with a grin. "Ready to meet the locals?" "As I'll ever be." His heart thumped with a mix of excitement and apprehension. The shuttle touched down softly on a clearing bordered by towering trees with iridescent leaves. The door hissed open, and they were immediately met with a rush of warm, fragrant air. Stepping out, Eric felt the softness of the ground beneath his boots, a spongy moss that seemed to breathe with the forest. A rustling sound drew their attention to the edge of the woods. From between the trees, a procession emerged, led by a tall figure with shimmering skin that caught the sunlight. Her eyes, wide and opalescent, fixed on Eric and Jenna as she approached. "Welcome, travelers from Earth," she said, her voice melodic and resonant. "I am Queen Selassie of the Yolari. We have awaited your arrival with great anticipation." Eric stepped forward, extending his hand, a gesture of friendship. "I'm Eric Solis, and this is my co-pilot, Jenna Morris. We come in peace and hope to learn from each other." Selassie tilted her head, observing his hand before mirroring the gesture. Her hand was cool and smooth, an intriguing contrast to human warmth and texture. "Your customs are unfamiliar to us, but we wish to understand all that is human," Selassie explained, releasing his hand. "Let us walk to our council chamber where we can converse more comfortably." As they walked, the alien queen's retinue fell into step behind them. Eric noticed their varied appearances, some with hints of blue and purple in their skin, others with subtle luminescent tattoos. "You have a beautiful world," Eric remarked, trying to find common ground. "Thank you, Eric Solis," Selassie replied. "Each species treasures its home. What is Earth like?" "It's varied," Eric responded warmly. "Mountains, oceans, deserts, forests. Not so different from here, maybe, except in the details." Jenna joined in. "The diversity is what makes it special." "Much like here, I suppose." Selassie smiled, a glint of appreciation in her eyes. "Indeed, diversity is to be celebrated. Tell me, what brings you so far from your world?" "We're explorers," Eric explained. "We seek to expand our knowledge, find new friends, and perhaps new homes." Their path led to a structure that seemed to grow out of the ground itself, woven from living branches and glowing with light that filtered through leaves overhead. "Your architecture is amazing," Jenna couldn't help but comment as they entered the building, which was spacious and airy inside. "We use what the planet provides without harming it," Selassie explained. "Sustainability is a principle we live by." As they settled into seats that seemed molded from the ground itself, Eric looked around, impressed by the harmony of it all. "It's incredible how you integrate nature into everything. We have much to learn from each other," Selassie agreed, her eyes reflecting a seriousness now. "Let us begin by understanding our cultures, our histories, and our aspirations. Only then can true friendship be forged." Eric nodded, ready to delve into discussions that would hopefully mark the beginning of a meaningful exchange. He knew this was just the start, but it felt like the dawn of something significant. The Yolari Council Chamber was a testament to the alien culture's reverence for learning and exchange. The walls were lined with what appeared to be books and artifacts, each piece glowing faintly under the soft light that permeated the room. Eric and Jenna, accompanied by their Yolari hosts, sat around a circular table designed to facilitate open conversation. "Let us start with history," Queen Selassie suggested. "Understanding where we come from is crucial to understanding who we are." Eric nodded. "Absolutely. Humanity has a diverse history, full of achievements and failures. We've created marvels of technology and art, but we've also faced our share of conflicts and disasters." Beside him, another human delegate, Dr. Luis Alvarez added. Our history is a patchwork of different cultures and ideas that sometimes clash, but often blend to create something new. How about the Yulari? Selassie gestured to one of her advisors, a slender figure named Tolan, who stepped forward. The Yulari have always been connected to our planet. We evolved alongside it, learning to use its resources without depletion. Our history is one of harmony, not conquest. Jenna looked intrigued. That's fascinating. On Earth, many of our environmental and social issues stem from overuse and exploitation. How have you managed to avoid that? Our philosophy is based on balance, Tolan explained. From a young age, we are taught to perceive ourselves as part of a greater whole. This shapes our actions and technologies. Eric was impressed. There's a lot we could learn from that. On Earth, we're still struggling with sustainable development. As the discussion continued, Selassie proposed an exchange of knowledge. Perhaps we could show you some of our technologies. Tomorrow, we can arrange a tour of our conservation facilities. That would be wonderful, Luis replied. And in return, we could share some of our own advancements. We've made significant progress in renewable energy and medical technologies. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, such as cuisine and entertainment. Selassie was curious about human leisure activities. What do humans do for fun? She inquired. Jenna laughed. Oh, a variety of things. Sports, music, films, reading. The list is endless. Could you demonstrate some of these activities? Selassie asked. It would be a joy to experience human culture firsthand. Eric smiled. We'd love to. In fact, we brought some musical instruments and sports equipment. We could arrange a cultural demonstration day. The Yulari were delighted by the idea, and plans were made for a day of cultural sharing. As the meeting concluded, Eric and his team felt a growing sense of camaraderie with their hosts. The following day, the human delegates set up various stations around the landing site for the cultural demonstration. Eric took charge of the sports station, setting up a makeshift pitch for soccer. Selassie watched with fascination as Eric and Luis demonstrated basic soccer skills. This requires considerable skill and coordination, she observed, her eyes following the ball intently. Would you like to try? Eric asked, offering her the ball. With a graceful nod, Selassie accepted. Under Eric's guidance, she kicked the ball lightly, a smile spreading across her face. This is quite enjoyable, she admitted, trying a few more kicks. Nearby, Jenna and another Yulari, Dara, strummed guitars. The sound of human music blended with the alien landscape, creating a surreal and beautiful atmosphere. As the sun set, the field was alive with Yulari and humans alike, sharing laughs and stories, the music continuing in the background. Eric looked around, feeling a profound connection to these alien friends. This, he said to Luis as they watched the festivities, is how peace starts. Not with treaties or negotiations, but with understanding and shared joy. Luis nodded in agreement. Here's to many more days like this. As the stars began to shine through the twilight, Eric felt hopeful about what the future might hold for both their peoples. The following morning, the air was crisp and clear as Eric and Luis walked towards the Yulari's conservation facilities with Queen Selassie and her advisor, Tolan. They were eager to demonstrate human technology's potential to enhance sustainable practices and equally curious about Yulari methods. As you know, Luis began, addressing the group, we've brought some examples of our renewable energy devices. Solar panels and compact wind turbines that we think could integrate well with your philosophy of balance. Selassie nodded, her interest apparent. We look forward to seeing these technologies. It's essential that we share knowledge that benefits our planet and your Earth. Upon arriving at the facility, Tolan led them through a sprawling complex that harmonized beautifully with its natural surroundings. Vines covered structured walls, and the roofs were layered with greenery. This is our main conservation lab, Tolan explained, gesturing around. Here, we develop techniques that help us maintain our ecosystem without harming it. Eric, impressed, shared his observations. It's remarkable how seamlessly your structures blend into the environment. It's something we've been working towards on Earth, but we're not quite there yet. Perhaps our methods can offer some guidance, Tolan suggested. leading them to a section of the lab where various plants were growing under different light conditions. These are part of our efforts to optimize plant growth with minimal energy input. Luis unpacked a small device. This is a portable solar generator. It converts sunlight directly into electrical power. It's quite efficient, even in low light conditions. Tolan examined the device with keen eyes. Fascinating. We use solar energy, but this seems more advanced than our current models. The exchange of ideas continued, with both sides eagerly discussing implementations. After the tour, the group settled under a large canopy for a casual discussion over light refreshments. Eric decided to address a potential misunderstanding from the previous day's cultural sharing. Selassie, I hope yesterday's activities were enjoyable but didn't seem trivial. We find that leisure activities like sports and music are vital for our well-being. Selassie smiled warmly. Do not worry, Eric. We found it enlightening. Joy and relaxation are as important to us as they are to you. It was a glimpse into the human spirit, something we deeply appreciate. Encouraged, Eric continued. It's these kinds of exchanges that can bridge worlds. Understanding each other's cultures goes beyond just technologies and policies. It's about seeing what makes each of us unique and yet so similar. Luis chimed in. Exactly. And it's why we also brought some interactive tech. Virtual reality that can simulate environments, either from Earth or imagined ones. Perhaps we could set it up for you? An intriguing proposal, Tolan said. We have similar simulation technologies, but used more for training than leisure. It would be interesting to compare. As plans were made to set up the virtual reality demos, Eric noticed the excitement in the Ilari team. It wasn't just about the technology, but about the prospect of experiencing each other's worlds in such an immersive way. Before the meeting ended, Selassie extended an invitation. Tomorrow, we are hosting a gathering in the evening to celebrate this budding friendship. It will be held at the Great Hall. We would be honored if you could join us. We'd be delighted, Eric replied. It's been a privilege to learn and share with you all. As they walked back to their quarters, Luis nudged Eric. You know, I think we're making more than just diplomatic progress here. Eric laughed. Building friendships, one step at a time. Indeed, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with strokes of orange and purple, Eric felt a profound sense of fulfillment. This mission was becoming more than just an exchange of knowledge. It was a true meeting of minds and hearts. As evening approached, Eric and Luis, alongside other human delegates, made their way to the Great Hall for the celebration hosted by the Ilari. The hall itself was an architectural wonder, its walls curving organically upwards to meet a transparent dome that revealed the night sky, aglow with unfamiliar constellations. Upon entering, they were greeted warmly by Selassie and her council. The hall was filled with a mix of Ilari and humans, all mingling and sharing light-hearted conversations. Welcome, friends, Selassie announced as she approached Eric and Luis. Tonight is not just a celebration but a symbol of our growing bond. Eric smiled, appreciative of the warmth. Thank you, Selassie. We're honored to be here and to share in this. Selassie then turned to introduce them to another member of her council, Varel, a specialist in Ilari ecological technology. Varel has been most excited to meet the engineers among you. Luis stepped forward, shaking hands with Varel. I've heard much about your work. It's a pleasure to finally meet. As it is mine, Varel replied. Your solar technology discussion yesterday was quite enlightening. I believe there is much we can do together. As the evening progressed, a variety of Ilari delicacies were served, dishes that were both exotic and surprisingly palatable to the human guests. Selassie took the opportunity to deepen the cultural exchange. Eric, Luis, I hope you'll find our food agreeable. We've tried to select dishes that reflect the biodiversity of our planet without being too alien to your tastes. Eric tasted something that reminded him of an earthy mushroom combined with the sweetness of corn. It's delicious, he remarked. There's a complexity in flavors that's really unique. Music began to fill the air, a harmonious blend of Ilari and human instruments creating a melody that seemed to transcend cultural boundaries. Selassie gestured to her musicians. We've incorporated some elements from the music you shared yesterday. It inspired our composers to try blending our traditional sounds with yours, Luis, fascinated, listened intently. It's incredible how music can bridge worlds like this. It feels both familiar and new. As the music played, Selassie led Eric and Luis towards a part of the hall set up for a more private conversation. Here, under the light of the glowing Yulari moon visible through the dome, Selassie spoke of her hopes. This event, she began, is not just about enjoyment. It's about laying the groundwork for future collaborations, for a deeper understanding between our peoples. Eric agreed. The potential is immense. We've barely scratched the surface tonight, Luis added. And it's not just about technology or knowledge. It's about building a relationship that's based on mutual respect and understanding. Selassie nodded thoughtfully. Exactly. And on that note, I would like to extend a more personal invitation. Tomorrow, I wish to show you one of our sacred places. It's a site of great natural beauty and spiritual significance. I believe sharing that with you might give you deeper insight into who the Yulari are. Eric felt honored. We would be grateful to experience that, Selassie. Thank you. As the night wound down, the delegation was left with a sense of anticipation for the next day's journey. The celebration had been a resounding success, not just in terms of enjoyment, but in fostering a connection that promised to grow even stronger. Walking back under the alien stars, Eric felt a quiet joy in the progress they'd made. Tomorrow's visit to the sacred site would undoubtedly deepen the ties that were beginning to feel as familiar as they were extraordinary. The morning was crisp as Eric, Luis, and the rest of the human delegates prepared for their visit to one of the Yulari's sacred sites. Queen Selassie, alongside her advisor Varel and a few other council members, arrived promptly to guide them through this significant cultural experience. As they trekked through the lush landscapes that bordered the Yulari capital, the air was filled with the sound of distant wildlife and the rustling of leaves. The path wound through towering trees and over small streams, leading to a clearing that overlooked a breathtaking valley. This, Selassie announced as they reached the overlook, is the Valley of Visions. It's a place of contemplation and renewal for our people. Eric and Luis exchanged impressed glances, taking in the panoramic views of the sprawling, vibrant ecosystem below. It's beautiful, Eric commented, genuinely awestruck by the scene. Selassie smiled warmly. It is here that many of our leaders come to reflect on important decisions. The energy of this place is said to clarify the mind and heart. As they descended into the valley, Varel explained various plant species and their uses in Yulari culture, ranging from medicinal applications to ceremonial purposes. Luis, who had a keen interest in botany, listened intently, occasionally asking questions. This one here, does it have healing properties? Yes, indeed, Varel replied, picking a leaf and handing it to Luis. It's used to treat minor wounds and soothe skin irritations. Perhaps we could exchange knowledge on medicinal plants. I'd like that, Luis said, tucking the leaf carefully into a small sample bag. Further into the valley, they reached a tranquil pond surrounded by stones arranged in a deliberate pattern. Selassie gestured for everyone to sit. This pond is the heart of the Valley of Visions. Our people believe that water is the source of life and wisdom. Sitting here, we often find peace and answers to our troubles, she explained. The group sat in silence for a moment, each person lost in the serenity of the surroundings. Eric, feeling a deep connection to the place, turned to Selassie. Being here, it's easy to see why your people value balance and harmony. There's a lesson in every part of this valley. Selassie nodded, pleased. And what do you feel, sitting here amongst us? Eric thought for a moment before answering. I feel a sense of possibility, that there's so much we can learn from each other, not just in terms of knowledge, but in how to live respectfully with our environment. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the group shared a light meal of Yulari fruits and edible flowers, continuing their discussions about environmental stewardship and cultural values. Your approach to conservation is something we could integrate on Earth, Luis mused. We've made strides, but seeing your practices in action, there's clearly more we can do. Selassie, delighted by their interest, suggested, perhaps a formal collaboration could be arranged. We could set up an exchange program for researchers and environmentalists. That would be invaluable, Eric agreed enthusiastically. There's so much potential for mutual growth. As they made their way back to the capital, the conversation shifted from formal agreements to personal reflections. Before coming here, I wasn't sure what to expect, Eric confessed to Selassie. But today, in the Valley of Visions, I felt something shift inside me. It's more than just a partnership now. It feels like a new beginning. Selassie's expression was thoughtful as she replied, and for us as well, Eric. Sharing our sacred place with you is a sign of deep trust and respect. We see a future where our peoples not only coexist but thrive together. The walk back was filled with light-hearted exchanges, and as the city came into view, both the Yulari and humans felt a renewed sense of purpose and friendship. Their journey had begun with curiosity and caution, but as they returned, it was with a commitment to a shared future, marked not just by technology and knowledge, but by a profound human and Yulari connection. The following days saw a flurry of activity as both human and Yulari delegates engaged in more formal exchanges of technology and ideas. The initial connections made at the Valley of Visions had catalyzed a deeper, more substantive collaboration. Eric and Luis, along with their Yulari counterparts, were at the heart of these discussions. In a spacious conference room in the Yulari capital, Eric sat with Varel and several other council members, poring over blueprints and data charts. They were discussing the integration of human renewable energy systems with Yulari ecological technology. Here's the latest solar panel efficiency data from Earth, Eric explained, pointing to a line graph on the screen. I think if we combine this with your bioluminescent energy storage, we could increase efficiency significantly. Varel, intrigued, leaned closer to examine the data. Fascinating. Our energy storage is efficient, but it lacks the rapid recharge capability of your solar panels. A hybrid system could indeed be more productive. Across the room, Luis was deep in conversation with another Yulari scientist, Lyra, discussing botanical cross-pollination techniques. We've had some success with gene editing to enhance crop resilience, Luis explained, showing Lyra a tablet with images of various Earth crops. But we're cautious about ecosystem impact. Lyra nodded thoughtfully. We face similar challenges. Perhaps a joint research initiative could explore safe, sustainable methods. We have a few indigenous plants that could benefit from your techniques. As they exchanged ideas, Selassie entered the room, her presence commanding attention. I see progress is being made, she commented, her tone pleased. Eric stood to greet her. Yes, Queen Selassie. We're finding a lot of potential areas for collaboration. Selassie walked over to the display. This is good. It's exactly the kind of partnership we hoped for. Not just sharing knowledge, but creating something new together. The room buzzed with a sense of accomplishment, and discussions continued into the afternoon. Plans were made for pilot projects and further exchanges. As the day wound down, Selassie invited Eric and Luis for a private dinner to discuss future cultural exchanges. At dinner, set in a serene garden within the palace grounds, the conversation turned from scientific to personal. Eric, Luis, Selassie began, serving a light Yulari dish. You've both been instrumental in bridging our worlds. How has this experience been for you? Eric shared his reflections first. It's been transformative. Seeing how your people live in harmony with nature, and the potential to apply some of these lessons on Earth. It's inspiring, Luis added, and challenging. There's so much we can learn from each other, yet we must be mindful of our differences and the integrity of our respective cultures. Selassie appreciated their honesty. True partnership respects those differences. We hope to visit Earth someday, to see your world as you have seen ours. That would be an honor, Luis replied, smiling warmly. The dinner concluded with a tour of the garden, where Selassie showed them some of her favorite spots, each with a story or a lesson tied to Yulari history or philosophy. As they walked, Eric felt the bond between their peoples strengthen, not just through formal agreements, but through shared meals, stories, and mutual respect. I hope our peoples continue this path of friendship and collaboration long into the future, Selassie said as they paused by a softly glowing fountain. With all we've planned, I'm confident we will, Eric responded, optimistic about the road ahead. The night ended with a renewed commitment to move forward together, not just as allies in technology and science, but as friends with a deep understanding of each other's worlds. As the sun set over the Yulari capital, the air filled with the sweet scent of blooming nocturnal flowers. Tonight was special. Queen Selassie had invited Eric and Luis to the observatory, a revered place where Yulari scholars and leaders often gathered to ponder the cosmos and their place within it. "Welcome, friends," Selassie greeted them warmly as they arrived. The observatory was an impressive structure, with walls that seemed to open up to the heavens, filled with the quiet murmur of Yulari astronomers and thinkers. "Thank you for having us here," Eric said, looking around in awe. The observatory's dome was open, revealing a vast canvas of stars, more vivid and numerous than any he'd seen on Earth. "This is where we come to reflect on larger questions," Selassie explained, leading them to a central platform with a large telescope. "The cosmos reminds us of our small part in a vast universe." Luis, always curious about Yulari science, was drawn to the instrument. "May I?" he asked, gesturing towards the telescope. "Of course," Selassie encouraged with a nod. As Luis peered through, adjusting the lens, he let out a low whistle. "The clarity is incredible. What kind of lens technology is this?" "We use crystalline alloys unique to our planet," Varel, who had joined them, explained. "They enhance light capture dramatically." Meanwhile, Selassie pulled Eric aside. "There's something important I wish to discuss with you," she began, her tone serious but open. "Throughout your stay, we've shared much about our technologies and cultures. But there's a deeper layer to our interactions that I believe we're ready to explore." Eric listened intently, sensing the gravity of her words. "I'm all ears, Selassie. It's about trust," she continued, "and vulnerability. Our people believe that true understanding comes not just from sharing what we are proud of, but also what challenges us. Tonight, I want to share more about our spiritual beliefs and our concerns for the future." Moved by her openness, Eric nodded. "We're honored by your trust, and we're ready to listen and share in kind." Selassie smiled slightly, then gestured for them to follow her to a smaller, more intimate chamber off the main observatory. Inside, artifacts and ancient manuscripts lined the walls. "These texts are sacred to us," Selassie said as they walked among the displays. "They speak of our origins, our discoveries, and our dreams. But they also speak of warnings, about isolation and the perils of ignorance." Eric felt the weight of her words. On Earth, we have similar records. Histories that teach us, warn us. It's a universal truth, it seems, that knowledge must be paired with wisdom. "Yes," Selassie agreed. "And it's why I believe our newfound friendship could be pivotal. Not just for our people's immediate benefits, but for a shared approach to universal questions and challenges." They spent the next hours discussing philosophical perspectives, existential risks, and hopes for future generations. It was a deep exchange, more profound than any technical collaboration could offer. As the night drew to a close, Selassie turned to them both. "Eric, Luis, this exchange has confirmed my belief in our potential together, not just as allies, but as kindred spirits navigating a complex universe." Luis, moved by the evening's discussions, responded, "What we've shared tonight goes beyond diplomacy. It's the foundation for a genuine and lasting bond." Eric added, "We'll carry tonight's lessons back to Earth, and we hope to welcome you there, to share in our world as we have in yours." As they left the observatory under the starlit sky, the trio felt a profound connection, not just between leaders, but between civilizations poised to face the future as friends with a deep, mutual understanding. On the final morning of their visit, the atmosphere at the Yulari capital was bittersweet. Eric, Luis, and their team were packing up, preparing for their journey back to Earth, while Selassie and her advisors arranged a closing ceremony to mark the end of this significant cultural exchange. As the human delegates gathered their belongings, Selassie approached Eric and Luis, who were overseeing the loading of their shuttle. "Eric, Luis," Selassie began, her voice tinged with emotion. "Today is not a goodbye but a celebration of the beginning of our shared journey." Eric smiled, extending his hand, which Selassie took warmly. "We've learned so much from you and your people. We're leaving with not just memories but with a new perspective and, hopefully, a new path forward together." The ceremony was held in the Great Hall, where their first welcome dinner had taken place. Now, The hall was adorned with symbols of both Yulari and human cultures, representing their unity and shared future. As the proceedings began, Luis stepped forward to speak on behalf of the Earth delegation. When we arrived, we were strangers, curious and hopeful. Now, we leave as friends and partners, enriched by the knowledge and warmth we've shared. Varel, representing the Yulari, joined Luis at the podium. Your visit has opened our eyes to the possibilities of what we can achieve together. Our technologies, our philosophies, and our hearts are more aligned than we ever imagined. The ceremony included the signing of several agreements, formal documents that outlined the future exchanges and collaborative projects between Earth and the Yulari. Eric and Selassie signed each document, their hands steady but their hearts full of the promise these papers held. After the formalities, the floor was opened for a cultural showcase. Yulari musicians played their traditional instruments, now interwoven with melodies that had been introduced by the human visitors. Meanwhile, human delegates displayed images and holograms of Earth's landscapes and cities, sharing stories of their home world. As the event drew to a close, Selassie invited Eric for a final walk in the palace gardens. The gardens, a place of peace and reflection throughout their visit, seemed the perfect setting for their farewell. Eric, Selassie said as they walked, "Your team has shown great respect and eagerness to understand us. You've left a lasting impression on us all." Eric nodded, looking around at the tranquil beauty surrounding them. "And you've given us a gift, Selassie. The understanding that though our worlds are different, our core aspirations, to live in harmony, to explore and to protect, are the same." They paused by the same softly glowing fountain where they had stood a few nights ago. "I hope one day soon, I can welcome you to Earth just as warmly as you've welcomed us here," Eric said. "That day will come," Selassie assured him. "And when it does, it will be another step toward a future where our people thrive together, not just alongside each other, but as part of a shared community." As they returned to the gathering, the final farewells were filled with promises to visit, to continue conversations, and to build on the foundations they had laid. The human delegates boarded their shuttle, turning for one last look at the friends they were leaving behind. The shuttle lifted off, leaving the Yulari waving from the ground. Eric watched through the window, the figures growing smaller, but the connection feeling stronger than ever. Back on Earth, these experiences would be shared, discussed, and built upon. For Eric, Luis, and their team, it was clear that this mission was just the beginning of a profound and enduring alliance.